Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. Welcome to this episode, everyone. I'm here with Jenn Lim. And Jenn, I came across your work through a virtual summit. So I think I've been following you and getting your newsletter for, it's probably been about a year, maybe two. I don't know how long you've been doing your Delivering Happiness newsletter. But I definitely heard of your book. And the virtual summit, was that last year? Was that 2021? At the beginning?
I think so. Time is in a big warp right now.
February, I'm like, no, then that would have meant just a couple months ago, and it wasn't. I'm like, when was it? I thought it was cold outside. When was it?
Yeah.
Really cool virtual summit, and I signed up for it. And part of signing up for it was getting your book, Beyond Happiness.
You're talking about the Happy Palooza, Beyond Happy Palooza.
Yes.
Beyond, yeah. I know. Yeah. That was last year, 2021, October 2021.
October. Okay. And that was so cool. I loved meeting. I knew some of the people's work that you had on, and then some I'd never heard of before. It was really cool. And then with that came your book, which was awesome. And then I reached out and I said, well, I would love to get her on my podcast. And so here we are. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I don't know a ton about your background. I know a little bit from reading some of your book and from following you, a little bit about where you worked before. I know you have your own company now. Tell everyone, so did you go to school to be in business? Did you always see yourself with this career and having your own thing? Or was it just you started off doing something else and then got this great idea? I would love to know more about your background.
Yeah. So, I mean, the business that's been around since 2010 is called Delivering Happiness. And essentially it came out of another book called Delivering Happiness, launched that with Tony Hsieh, who was the late CEO of Zappos. And then lo and behold, there was a demand for happiness in the world. So we decided to create a company and been running it since. So that's been really exciting to be able to share these, principles of scientific happiness around the world in organizations, and creating happier people with, more successful companies at the same time has been an unknown dream come true. So to answer your question, no, I had no idea. I couldn't even fathom, having a company around happiness at the time I was going to school. In fact, I'm Asian American, so I've had one of those upbringings. And I know it's not just Asian culture, but a lot of cultures supposed to be go to good school, be a doctor, a lawyer, make a lot of money, be happy. But I started to do that. I was pre-med at UC Berkeley. And so I thought it was successful, going down the right path, or at least in my parents' eyes. And then I realized, this is kind of feeling weird. It's not for me. So I started wandering, and I stumbled upon something called Asian American Studies at Cal. And I just totally I fell in love with the whole field, because I learned so much about, not just about me, but everything around me, my ancestors, my history, things that never were taught in school. Mm-hmm. So that's when I decided to change gears, because I was so passionate about it, and majored in it, and, flipped out my parents, because they were like, what the heck are you doing? Asian American Studies. They're just like, come home more often. We'll tell you what your Asian American Studies should be about. But I stood my ground, and in reflection, and as you asked that question, that was probably the first time I actively said, no, I'm going to do this for myself. And and so from that point forward, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I got sucked up in the .com days, the first .com here in Silicon Valley. And I just got lucky along the way. But it taught me a lot of different things, because in that, the .com boom and busted. And at first the money, title, status was so easy, and then it was gone. Mm-hmm. And then within the same year, I got laid off, 9/11 happened, and my dad got diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. All in with 1 year, like boom, boom, boom. one, two, three punch. And I was set in my place of what am I doing? And ask those questions. Why am I chasing these things that really don't mean that much? So that's when I really shifted the way I looked at my life decisions. Because that up to that point in time, they were so hard. I was like, do I go this? Do I do that? What route do I take? But after the series of events, I decided to live more purposefully and more intentionally with values. And so the values for me became being authentic, having a sense of freedom, and my relationships. And I knew if I lived by that, then I could never live with regret and look back with regret. So that was a really big shift for me. And that was in my late 20s. And I think because of that shift, and I wasn't chasing those things that were so, extrinsic, then it brought upon a whole new way of looking and living life on a day-to-day basis.
I love that. I love that you asked yourself those questions. I'm a big I'm very introspective, but I'm always asking myself questions. If I were to be talking to a friend, and I would say this to them, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start saying that to myself. I've been doing that for several years. I don't know where I learned that. I've always been a really curious person, but I think those questions, especially as you get older, are number one, very important. But my husband and I have talked to our kids about this for a long time. Like you said to yourself, why am I doing this? What am I chasing? What's it for? Like, it's not just that thing that you want. There's a feeling that comes with it. There's a peacefulness, whatever it is. There's something around it that makes you want it. And if you can get to the why, that's a big thing. Obviously, that Simon Sinek thing, what's your why with companies and with individuals. But questions are underrated. Like when you really just sit down and ask yourself, whether you're writing it down or you're talking to a friend about it, or just sitting and thinking to yourself or meditating about it, it's amazing what pops up unexpectedly. Sometimes like you think, oh, I know this would be the answer. And then sometimes you're sitting down, you're like, depending on the day, who you talked to, where you went that day, whatever, you get a new question or a new answer, and you're like, huh. And those are the things that you need to pay close attention to. And we're not taught that in school. So we're taught to go to college, get a great education, and then get a great job. It's not like this. We're not taught to be introspective. We're not taught to trust our intuition. I think especially women, I think we're way more intuitive than I think we have more intuition than men. That's just my opinion. Maybe there's scientific evidence about it. My husband's a very intuitive person, but I think women in general, we're taught to shut it down earlier because it's like, well, that feeling, you're being too sensitive. It's like, no, I had a feeling about something, and because whatever I was feeling really was real. And I brought it up because now I'm concerned about it, or I'm wondering or whatever. And it takes energy, other people's energy, to have to answer our questions. And then we're taught to shut it down too early. And then when we get older and we're in college or we're in our careers, we're like, we have a question and we don't ask it because we think, oh, maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe I am being too, feely or whatever it is. It's not, we don't get credit for it. I think it's way better now because of people like you and your work and all of the things that are available to us as women now. But in general, hasn't really been encouraged. Instead of just like taking all our gifts and saying, here's what we can bring. And it's a good, hey, I'm all for men and having men in the workplace and business. We have different strengths. So like, let's bring them together and make things better instead of just like poo-pooing something that doesn't fit with that mold, with that old school, like business mold or whatever. So that's just a roundabout way of saying you were smart to ask yourself those questions and to go against what your parents wanted and say, I'm going to do this for myself. Because it was probably a big risk. And then you probably had to worry about how they're going to feel about you and if they're going to be mad at you, but they don't have to live your life.
Yeah. We're the person that has to spend the most time with ourselves. So hopefully it'll, we want it to be in a good place. And what I really picked up in terms of what you just said is the word of curiosity. That to me has just augmented in importance as I get older, because the more we get set, if we had some form of success or we had some form of happiness, it's sort of human nature to kind of cling to that, like, oh, I need that again, and I can't change those steps as to how I got there. But that's just not plain true, because especially what we saw in the last couple of years, we couldn't control hardly anything in our lives for such a long period of time. For some folks still, the case. And we couldn't predict anything. And so that's why this sense of curiosity is really abandoning anything, all the assumptions that we had in the past, especially the world shifts around us, the stuff we can't control. But with curiosity, we can have a better awareness and understanding of what we can control within ourselves and like how we interact with other people. But I do think, like, to your point, it all starts within. And those questions that we ask, and also on the build of what you said about gut, like, I think you're right. Everyone has a different disposition, and what I think is most important now is to be authentic to who we are, whether we lead with our head first or our heart first. We're in a time and place that is more like, when was the last time we can hear love in the workplace and not people like, whoa, what did you, I can't believe you just said that, or care, like these 4-letter words that 10 years ago would be like a huge no in a workplace setting, but now it's openly received. So let's make the most of this time and being able to say, yeah, I want to have a heartful mind and a mindful heart, and I want to bring that every day. And people are like, oh, that makes sense. I want to be like that too.
I want that. Yeah. I love that heartful mind. I'm gonna write that down. Heartful mind and mindful heart. I love that. That's beautiful.
And knowing it can be in coexistence is the biggest thing.
Yes. In my book, I have a whole chapter on curiosity because I think it's a really, really important value. I think it's squashed when kids get, when they're little in school, it's like, that's a great question. But then like little by little each year in high school, junior high and then high school, it's like, you're annoying if you ask too many questions. You're annoying if you challenge something and it's not to be challenging. It's just because you really, wait, that doesn't sit right with me. And can you tell me more about that? It's squashed too early, and it's so important for creativity and for thriving and everything. So I'm glad you mentioned that word, curiosity, again. Okay, so let's go to your next question. What do you think? So as you jumped from, so you switched to Asian American Studies, and then you got a job doing, how did you get into this, I'm going to be my own boss thing now, with your authenticity and your freedom between doing along the way to jump there, to remain peaceful, happy, and figuring it out?
Yeah, the jump from working for someone versus working for myself happened after, even before that, after I got spit out, graduated, and then I realized what my parents were talking about. I can get a job, who's going to hire an Asian American Studies major? and so I started freaking out. It was my turn to freak out. And I literally started cold calling. And this was back in the day where, you're picking up the phone, dialing numbers. And I happened to reach a senior manager at KPMG in Palo Alto, here in Silicon Valley. And it was random that she picked it up. Like, she didn't, there was no reason for her to, but she did. And we just started talking, and she gave me that chance. And I was just like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this. So that was like a 5-year stint of amazing work, traveling the world, doing the .com stuff. But then when everything collapsed, I got laid off from startup. Actually, it wasn't KPMG anymore. But that was the moment I realized, you know what? I would like working my butt off for all these years for this boss, for this company. And at the end of the day, when money, hit the fan or didn't hit the fan, I was just a number. And if they could have done it a different way of showing sense of like, sorry, gratitude, but it's just like, that was it. And it was not just me. There were so many people that went through that experience. So that was the moment I said, you know what can I do within my control to be able to not feel that again? And that's when I made that decision point. And at first it was hard, just to make that shift because it's a lot of unknowns and risks. And you're like, oh my God, it's instability. How am I going to, and all that, of course, floods my thoughts, floods my mind. But I knew I had a better sense of the priorities, especially with my dad's illness and passing, that it's like, that's not really what this is all about. So let's just keep exploring on what this could be. And that's how I became my own consultant, and then met Tony Hsieh back in the day and started help building Zappos back in the day, and realized that, there was a lot of opportunities to make more money throughout these years, but I'm so glad I didn't go that path.
What was your role when you worked at Zappos? Was it consultant?
I was a consultant. I think it was like 8 or 9 years. So
Okay.
different projects along the way, but eventually ended up in culture and creating the culture books that became kind of in a very symbolic way of how we looked at culture at a time that culture wasn't a buzzword yet, in companies. And so it was fun. Like we were able to play with what happiness can mean, what positive psychology can mean in the workplace, and being able to use it as a petri dish to understand how it could actually do it for other companies too.
And that ended up being like what Zappos did in Tony's work, like building that company right without happy and just the way they treat their customers. I've been a customer of Zappos for years, and just the whole like their approach to like we're happy, like we are happy to help you and whatever you need. It's just it was so not the way anyone else did things back then. And so that was a big model, and that's why he wrote a couple. You guys wrote a couple books together, or can't remember.
Yeah, so Delivering Happiness we launched in 2010, and he was the main author, and I helped with everything. First person was him, everything third person was me, in terms of putting stories together from customers and vendors and all that. So that was that book at that time. And then it just seemed that, hey, I guess one of the biggest feedback we got was like, oh yeah, that's great, that'll happen for you at Zappos, but it'll never happen for me. And then that just kind of fired me up. I was like, but I think it can, like, because it's based on science.
Here's proof. It's based on science. Here's proof. And then that became a model, right? Like Zappos, it was like, how did Zappos get all these great people and keep all these great people? And then other companies wanted to know, right? It became like we want to be like Zappos, where people love coming to work.
Yeah. Well, that was sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. And that was the biggest divergence too, because the comment of, oh, we want to be like Zappos. And it was so anti the belief of what Delivering Happiness, the company, was, because you can't be a Zappos and you don't want to be a Zappos. Like you have your own values, you have your own why of why you started the company or why you joined the team or why you took on that role. And it has to be owned by you, not by another company, because that's not you. Right. So that was a big part of how Delivering Happiness diverged from Zappos, because Zappos kept on doing its thing. And we developed these models that became more universal, so that no matter what culture you're already in or the culture that you want to create, these are the scientific levers you can put in place and create that beautiful, unique DNA of culture for yourself.
Awesome. I was looking at a job description on LinkedIn the other day, and in it, Jenn, it's like so inspiring now, because I've been doing this work for several years, but I just love that everyone's talking about it so easily now. Because when the pandemic started, it was like people are going to need to be connected. Like all of these other things in this program that I deliver, it's going to be perfect, because I was doing this before the pandemic, but once the pandemic hit, I was like, everyone's going to need this. And now the job description, it actually had all these bullets, and then a big paragraph underneath it. It was like employee well-being, building a culture, all of these buzzwords that weren't even buzzwords 5 years. I mean, they were in our world, but I was like, oh my gosh, now this is like the standard. We want to help employee engagement. We want to build our culture and have it be this awesome place to work. And all of these great things that are happening now because of the pandemic. And my husband and I were just talking about this the other day, like the good stuff and the bad stuff that came from it. And he's like, what's the good stuff? I'm like, are you kidding me? There's so many good things. I mean, obviously there's a lot of bad things, but there's a lot of good things that have come from it. And to me, that's like one of the top things that companies are starting to say, like, what's making our people happy? And P.S., happier people make happier companies. And guess what? You make more money, they make more money. Like it's just beneficial to everyone. It's just silly that people didn't see that sooner.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it took a pandemic and global recession and climate change and all the things that happened. We all got 2020. The whole world got 2020.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that had to happen before we could actually see the silver lining, knowing, as you say, there's just so much that happened and so much still happening. War in Ukraine. I mean, crazy things will continue to come, unforeseen, unpredictable, but at least there's a bigger awareness now of what is most important for us as individuals in a workplace, in a culture, in a team, in an organization.
Yes, I'm happy for that, for sure. Okay, so I'm guessing as a CEO, you get a lot of questions about how do I get into a great career? How do I do what you do? Or how do I do my own thing? Or career advice in general. Like, I'm going to work with this company, or I'm trying to get work here. what do you tell people that ask for your advice about like they're searching for a meaningful career with whether it's younger people or mid-career people?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a few models, and one of our models is the me, we community model. And it's really simple. If you could just imagine concentric circles, and you got me in the middle, we and community. And community, well, we is your team, your company, community is customers, partners, and vendors, but also the greater society now and the planet. Like we're all so interconnected.
Yes.
So our belief is to start with the me. You have all these different opportunities out there. And so this is an interesting stat that just came out yesterday. We've never had more people in the US quit their job in a month than this last month. 4.5 million people quit their job. At the same time, there's never been more job opportunities and openings available. Same month. And this is like, well, since they started capturing this data 20 years ago, this is like historic. So what this is telling us is that at the same time, people are like standing up for themselves, saying, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not flexible enough. It's not enough pay. It's not enough purpose for me. But at the same time, there's more opportunities. And so it can get overwhelming, understandably so. But I think our belief system starting with the me is basically how you can help get this really daunting environment really grounded, because you're grounded in yourself. So these exercises that we do with our clients, and I talk about them in my book, I make it really try to be as practical as we can. You take these exercises, you do them, you understand and revisit what actually is happiness anymore. What actually is your purpose? What are the values you really want to prioritize? Knowing that we had so much time in Zoom land and so much time at home during COVID to really think about, is this how I want to spend the minutes of my day?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do that work intrinsically for yourself first, then that's the biggest career advice I would give at this time, because there's a lot of options out there. And part of it of knowing what we want is knowing what we don't want. But at least you can have that pillar and just like, this is mine. What I will not, I will not sacrifice anything for these things, but this I might, because I want to explore and be curious. And these things mean the most. So having that going into your next career move or moves, since a lot of people are wearing 5 hats at the same time now, because we can, I think it's been so helpful to weather the storm.
I love that groundedness. I was talking to someone on my podcast recently, and we were talking about like, you have to know what you want. And like you said, when you find out what you don't want, that helps you get clear on what you do want. But having that clarity too, I believe I found this, the clearer you are about what you want, the easier opportunities and people come into your life that give you that. If you're all over the place, I think I'll do this, or I think I'd be okay with that, I'd be okay with that. It's not clear. It's definitely not grounded. And people can sense that. But if you're like, you're really grounded in your values, you know who you are, you know what your strengths and gifts are. And you can say like, I've written them down for myself, like this, I want a collaborative environment, all of the things I want. And you can gauge things easier, but you're also very clear when people ask you that question, because you're going to get that question a lot when you're looking for a job. Like, what's the right role for you? What kind of culture do you want? What are your most important values? It's like being collaborative. You have them, they're like they just roll off your tongue because you're so sure about what they are. People can sense that. And if all you're doing is just saying what they want to hear in that job description or whatever, people will know that too. Oh, it's really important for me to work for, no, you don't really care about that. They're going to know that when you're not grounded in it.
Yeah. And also to think about it this way too, it's like, it's a two-way conversation, and it's a social contract more than ever, that this person on the other side of this table or Zoom land, whoever is interviewing you, it's to everyone's benefit, to both of your benefits, to save time, to save money, to save energy, to actually address those questions and express them authentically. It's like not only from a company point of view, when we help CEOs, like it doesn't make sense to hire someone just because of XYZ, but it has to be a culture fit.
Yes.
Totally true on the other side. Is your being, your belief system, is that going to be aligned to that culture and all the other things that matter the most to you? So just thinking of it as more of a dialogue and a social contract between people, because the number one reason why we leave our jobs in the first place is not the company or what they do, it's the person we work for or the people we work with. So make sure when you're having those interviews, talk to everyone that you're going to be touching in the ecosystem, because those are the people like you're either going to like, yeah, let's do happy hour tonight, or no, I don't ever want to speak to you again.
Right. And then that's not going to be a place you're going to stay very long, even if it is aligned with
Right.
your values. It's like the culture has to be a good fit. So true. It's great advice. Okay, so we're coming up about the time. So I'll give you a couple and you can answer one or two if you want, both
Sure.
of them or either or. So this one is, you need to brag a little bit. What's the greatest gift you offer the world every day? And the other one is, what is one new thing you're taking away from our conversation today?
It's always weird to brag, but
I know, that's why I'm doing it, because I think it's yes.
in the way I answered that question, or the way, because people ask about strengths and stuff in general, and the way I respond to that is like, what do people ask of you without you saying anything? Because they see something in you and your strengths that you're not necessarily soliciting. So to answer the question, I guess I have a lot of deep dive conversations very easily, and not that sounds like a brag, but meaning we can get so quickly from, hey, what's going, how are you doing, to damn, like that, like going so deep into where that person is or where I am, because I think I just really love authenticity. And
Mhm.
so when you do that with honesty and respect, it really it takes out all the barriers from the other person or people, and you have this really engaging, more meaningful type of conversation, that I think, I don't know, I maybe it's selfish, I love that kind of conversation, so
Yeah,
maybe that's why people, yeah,
that's
want to come to
awesome.
me for that.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm doing this podcast, because I love learning about people, and it's so fun to hear their experiences and hear how they got to where they are. And I'm like you, I love getting those deep conversations. Probably maybe it bugs people sometimes. I don't care. Those are the people I want to have the conversation with. Then usually the people
Exactly.
that respond to it are like, those are my favorite. Yeah. Okay. And then
Exactly.
what's one new thing you're taking away? Anything you want to mention, or an idea that came in your head today? A new thing.
Uh, I think we kind of touched upon it at the very beginning. I think we can use the word curiosity more in our everyday language at work. I think maybe sometimes it gets underrated because it feels like, oh yeah, you're just like, you don't know what you want or what you're trying to do or your goal. But I think adding that in there and asking questions like, what might be different, or how might I, instead of coming to the table with answers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I was talking with was doing a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the girls was saying, like, if I'm introverted, what would you tell me? And it's like, I my go-to seriously is like, ask people questions. So you don't want to talk about yourself because you're shy and it's hard for you to connect with people or whatever. And maybe it isn't, just until you get to, a couple of questions. I'm like, questions will always get you other people talking. They'll get more comfortable, and all you have to do is sit back and listen. That's easy. Yeah, that's an easy thing for an introvert. I know, because my husband will say that he's more introverted, I'm extroverted, and he'll say, well, not everyone's comfortable connecting with strangers. And say, I get that. That's okay. That's good. There needs to be all types of people. But I'll say, you can never go wrong with asking questions and being curious, because number one, people love to talk about themselves. And then it makes it easy for you. All you have to do is listen. And then you can easily form another question by whatever they just told you. So you don't have to have a handful of experiences or stories. You just keep asking questions, and a conversation will ultimately ensue. It's impossible for it not to.
Yeah. And I think the biggest difference too, when doing that and asking the question part, is the attentive listening part. Is like, most people know pretty quickly whether or not you're genuinely asking the question because you want to learn or you want to understand. And that's when I think then those really natural, deep and meaningful conversations happen very, very naturally.
I agree. It's great. It's great advice. So Jenn, this is totally random, but over your right shoulder, there's a saying on the wall, and I can't read the whole thing. So it says, running out of champagne, what does it say?
This has been my mantra. This came up before COVID because my friends put it up there for my birthday, but it's really run true during this time. Does running out of champagne count as cardio?
That's so cool. I was just like, all this whole time, I'm like, what does it say? That's cool.
Yeah. So
I love
yes,
it.
the answer is yes. I have validated that during COVID.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I love it. Okay, so how can people, so tell them about your book and how, so I know that you work with companies to help build their cultures. People want to get in touch with you or your work, or what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so my book is, I launched the website for my book. The new one is just jennlim.com. So jennlim.com. And you can get, the book at your favorite bookstore. But we also have like free things to offer on the website for exercises that if you want to get a taste of what it's like or what the book's about and these practical exercises, you can find it there. And then also the company deliveringhappiness.com. It gives you more like case studies and stories to inspire, and also tools and resources for free if you're curious about what you could do for your culture too.
Awesome. I love I think when I came across your work a couple of years ago and the delivering happiness, I don't know how I did it, but I'm always on webinars and workshops for training development. So I'm sure it just came up organically through that. But I just remember thinking, wow, what a great company name, like Delivering Happiness. Like, what a great thing to be around every day, like for you to get up and that's what you talk about and that's what you help companies do. So kudos to you for
Thank you.
Making a change that everyone can benefit from. And I'm sure it was risky in the beginning because it's probably like delivering happiness. Like, we don't care about that. We're a company. We're here to make money. It's like, yeah, but that makes you more money. So kudos to you for going out on a limb and doing that. And it's changing cultures for sure.
Thank you. It's been a wild ride, that's for sure. I mean, it's not happiness every day. I can guarantee you that.
Yes.
But
yes,
yeah,
it never
but it's worth
is.
it.
At least you're making efforts, right?
Yeah, it's worth the ride. Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so glad I reached out, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you. And
thank you.
I love learning more about you, and I'm excited to follow your work and support
likewise.
you. Yeah.
Likewise. Keep on doing all the great work you're doing too. So
yeah, I appreciate it. All right, bye everyone. Be happy, right? That's a good ending. Be happy.
Bye everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.